One's ready. Go!
Hey, everybody. Before we hop into this next episode with the commander of Combat Control School, Lieutenant Colonel Rylan Tanner, who is a special tactics officer.
How did we get him on the podcast? That's wild.
I know. How did we get him on the podcast? I have no idea.
I don't know.
How do you score that something like that? You know, head over to drinkhoist.com. Listen, these little packets right here are fantastic to travel in. There's no dye. There's no dye anymore.
They took all of it out. Thanks. Yep. Make America healthy again. RFK was like, you got to take the dyes out of the hoist. And then we did it.
Does he do the shake thing too? Or is he just,
that's just me.
I don't know.
It just feels good. I just got
J. Fox and never mind.
Yeah. He's got enough problems. You leave both of those men alone.
That man's a national treasure.
Treasure.
Great American.
So, but drinkhoist.com, promo code one's ready. But you don't have to go online if you don't want to. They sell it at HEB, commissary, Safeway, gas stations. So it's likely in your grocery store already, or maybe even a local gas station. But you don't get a discount if you go that way. So
how do I get a discount, Jared?
You go to drinkhoist.com, use the promo code one's ready. They also have their ready to drink. These are what you're going to see at the grocery stores and gas stations. These packets are what you're going to see if you order online, and the drinks. But
get the packets. The packets are so good. That fruit punch that he's got right there, that little red boy. Oof, dude, that is so good. And you can throw it in. It makes everything taste better. I got a little chocolate animal-based protein that I drink every day. And days that I really need some extra hydration just to start it off, I throw that bad boy directly in the protein shake. It puts that little fruit punch flavor in there. It's fantastic. Hydrates better than an IV. It's IV level hydration. No more artificial dyes. It's fantastic. Every time I open my bag up from some trip that I'm on, there's undoubtedly, like when I get ready to pack for the next trip, I'm like, oh, look, it's a little present from past Aaron. It's these new packs that are in here. So I'll just keep them in there. But go to drinkhoist.com, use our code one's ready to check out, get a sweet discount. I do want to give a quick shout out too. Man, shout out to the boys over at Terra Arma. You guys know I'm a hat guy. I'm letting the hair fly out today. But, man, the boys at Terra Arma hooked me up. They were like, hey, we got some new workout gear that you guys want to try. Man, I can't speak highly enough. The shirts are great. The shorts are awesome. I just want to say thanks to the dudes over at Terra Arma. You guys are freaking awesome. You guys are doing good work. And as we all know, SEAC number 4, now retired, Chief Master Sergeant Ramon Colon Lopez, CZ himself. He's on the Whoop team now. No big deal. Don't ever let that guy beat you at anything. He was in the military for 30 years. If he's in the top 5 of that Whoop team, y'all are in trouble. But shout out to CZ. Shout out to Terra Arma. You guys are doing great work. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Now, enjoy this episode with Lieutenant Colonel Rylan Tanner, Combat Control School commander, and overall great dude. So enjoy.
He's a little grumpy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room. We have Aaron, Trent, and myself. And then we also have Lieutenant Colonel Rylan Tanner. Hey, sir. Appreciate you joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. Now, you are you and I go back at least 2016, I think. And you're a special tactics officer, wearing that scarlet beret, and you are the commander of the training squadron now. Well, actually, Combat Control School to be precise.
So yes, so the 352nd Special Warfare Training Squadron, which affectionately known as Combat Control School, at least for the next 3 weeks before I change out command. But I think the first time we ran across was at the 2-3, and then we deployed in 18. You guys got to go to Germany, and I got to go down on continent. So it's a lot of fun.
Gross. Wow.
Deployment to Germany.
Wow. Eating doner kebabs at 2 a.m. out in Boblingen, talking about I'm deployed, brother.
Jared was like, when I make chief, this is how it's always going to be.
There were hardships that were had, okay?
It was a good time.
Leading from Germany.
So, Ryla, did you always know that you wanted to kind of go into the military and kind of do special operations?
Absolutely not. I mean, my lifelong dream was to play baseball. That's all I ever thought about kind of growing up. But I grew up in a military family. My dad retired out of the Air Force in 99, I think. But post-college, baseball dream died. I didn't have a lot of direction. For about 2 years, I was working construction. You had a math degree and just kind of doing nothing. And eventually, just kind of seeing the right choice, is what I grew up in. And so I applied to officer training school in, 2009. and got accepted. And even then, like I had no idea any of this stuff existed. I didn't know about special tactics. I didn't know about combat control. But I ran into a guy named was Jesse at OTS, and he was going to be a stow. And, he's kind of telling me about it. I was like, yeah, I have no idea. I'm going to do this acquisitions thing. Cause I got the recruiter kind of duped me into it. Actually, a data analyst, doing a bunch of nerd stuff. And then, I got down to Eglin, and that's kind of the hot spot with Herbert sitting there. And so I ran into all the guys in training and, just kind of identified with those guys, being, playing baseball and football growing up, just the team sport aspect. You really saw that in all the trainees and kind of hanging out with some of those guys. And they also, in my first job, they told me that was the best job I could get as a data analyst. And so I was like, oh, it's going downhill from here. And so eventually, about a year into it, I decided to cross train. And it took me about a year to train up on my own, to think I was ready for stow selection, which, I wasn't. You kind of get smacked in the face when you get there. It's very eye-opening. Day one, when they did back-to-back AFSOCs, I was like, what the hell did I just do to myself? But it worked out. So I ended up coming over to the STTS in November of 2011. And then
wasn't we like, I don't know if you know this, Cadre, but we just did an AFSOC. I don't. You have our scores. Why are we?
I would love
doing another one.
Hey guys, did you just hit the same like first point on the daily schedule? Do you guys realize we just finished this one?
Well, I
feel like the cadre would have been like super, receptive to that feedback.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're always very receptive to the feedback. It turns out that was kind of the standard at that point, which I had no idea. I was just like, oh yeah, you're just going to do it twice. And the fortunate thing was that instead of going, for the next swim, they just went into the first pool session. So we essentially did 2 back-to-back AFSOCs into our first pool session. And it was definitely eye-opening. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. It was pretty funny. So I had a good time. General Armfield, or, Colonel Armfield then ended up hiring me. And I got to spend some time with him down at SOCOM last week at the pre-command course. And we got to talk about stow selection and, had some good laughs about what they did to us. So.
Because at that time, that was still phase 2 and everything like that, right? What they were calling it?
It was Sammy Schindler running it. So it was just no holds barred. I had some PTSD from that silly little grimace that he always has after stow selection. But it was a good time, put us through the ringer. And you guys know this, but like you learn a lot about yourself when you're at the bottom of the pool, not breathing and just trying to survive. So.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So you said that you weren't ready. You weren't prepared enough. You spent a year preparing, but you still feel that you didn't do. What kind of stuff did you do? Did you follow any kind of program, or did you link yourself up with, another stow or anything like that? Or did you just kind of do it all on your own?
It's kind of a mix of all of it. I met some of the guys that were in training. They linked me up with some of the guys in the community, some active stows, and they kind of gave me some advice of, and it's like, hey, here's the AFSOC, be able to crush this thing, which I think was the easy part. But, the rucking was surprising to me just because I had never done stuff like that, for distance. Like you've gone camping and worn a pack, but not, rucking for time with, additional weight. And that wasn't something I ended up focusing on because there wasn't a podcast or a lot of internet traffic about all this stuff. So I was just kind of figuring it out. I went through probably a dozen different workout partners, trying to find guys that were doing the same thing and, just seeing what worked. I was working out once or twice a day for almost a year. I ended up, John Carberry ended up going to stow selection with me. He was down at Eglin as well. This guy was just a beast. And I really attribute me just being able to pass all that stuff to him just because I just kept trying to keep up with him during all of our workouts. And he crushed my soul day in and day out. But, I was super motivated. I was, mid-20s, in pretty good shape already. But you just, going to stow selection, you just don't know the extent of what they're going to do to you. And you can't train to, hey, we're going to work out for 8 hours today. you're almost never going to be prepared for that. It's just kind of like, hey, you're going to get as close as you can, and then grit through the rest, not freaking quit, right? And that's something that I think a lot of people have to learn, is just like, hey, find out whatever you have to do to get through that thing. Later down in the pipeline, I figured out, hey, it was my next meal. I was always just looking for that next meal, and if I get to my next meal, that I was good. It was a little different at stow selection. I had no idea what I was doing, but I kind of figured it out a little bit later.
Well, you're the perfect person to talk to, right? Because you go in completely blind. You had no clue what was going on. And now you're at the complete other end of it. And now you're the guy that gets to guide people through those. And that's valuable experience for you to have. Imagine if you were this, stud, stow, lieutenant colonel, commander of combat control school that just did everything perfectly and you breeze right through it. You really wouldn't have a whole lot of experience to pour into these younger folks. I think that's actually a huge benefit from your end. People talk about, guys that breeze through the pipeline and never quit or never had to recycle a school or never had to fail an event. Those guys don't have that valuable experience that you do. So, comparing, what you went through now and then what you're doing, or what you went through then and then what you're doing now, how physically grueling are the early phases of all of these pipelines, of all of these selections, specifically combat control? And then what can people do to prepare for them better, even, knowing what you know now and using that experience?
Well, I still think it's pretty grueling. A&S, you're going through weeks of just PT essentially. You're not learning skills outside of like taking care of yourself and grinding through stuff. It's hard to kind of compare because I didn't go through what they're going through now. It's definitely different. We had a 2-week, orientation course at Lackland. It was just kind of a grinder, but the real test was down with Trent at Keesler, where you had to grind it out.
I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Not with the event, just with Trent. Like, he's an absolute monster.
That was such a nice guy.
No, it was Ryan McQuillan we had to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
MQ, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a solid 100%, yeah.
It's definitely different. You really had to watch out for yourself back then in terms of like taking care of yourself because, we didn't have the assets we did. And so if you weren't attuned to like, hey, how to PT correctly, it was like, you got to figure it out, man. Now they're given all the assets. They're getting taught how to move correctly, which I think is super important for longevity. But it's also has a downside of like, hey, if you give guys stuff too early, the wrong guy is going to use that as a crutch. The good dudes are going to take it and run with it, and they're going to get way better. But there's always a downside of giving people too many things, and not across the board, but definitely, the guys who are going to, hey, they don't want to put in the extra effort. I'm going to lean on this thing and create a crutch. That availability is there now, but only if you take it, right? So we've seen I think the top end guys are getting way better than what we saw. Just because they're so much more informed, they move so much better, they're getting so much stronger. We offer up some tests for them to knock off a couple of 8 counts here and there, and the top guys are super impressive. But again, you have the guys that have used those assets as a crutch that I think we're kind of moving towards the other end with those guys.
What are some of those other challenges you're seeing with this new group of combat control trainees? So you guys are always, I'm sure there's talk in the team room about these darn kids, but what are some challenges that you're working through, especially with this new generation of folks coming through?
Well, I mean, you always want to say like, oh, these guys suck. We were way better going through, but yeah, you try to keep some perspective. Exactly.
No, you weren't.
You look
I
back at some of the.
I bet that was it. General Armfield, is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, I bet General Armfield was like, bro, you sucked as a student. You were terrible. We made fun of you all the time.
Right. And so I think always trying to keep that perspective of like, hey, you weren't as good as you thought you were. But I definitely think that, students learn different now, right? Like the technology is so much more involved that, they're looking at these workbooks like, why the hell are we looking at paper? And you're just like, why wouldn't you look at paper? But to them, it's like, dude, give them an iPad and go forth and conquer. And so there's small things that we have to update. But I don't think that they're that different. There are some, I think, like musculoskeletal differences, potentially. Like I think kids are just generally outside a little bit less. And so we see a lot of musculoskeletal injuries, especially the lower extremities. I don't think they have the data to exactly prove this yet. But if you're not outside doing sports, lifting weights, in your younger life, you're going to pay for it, trying to come through this stuff. But it's also, we have a lot more HP assets to identify those things. I know all of us probably had something going on in the pipeline that you're just, hey, shut up about it and get through it. Because if you don't, you're just going to leave the pipeline. There wasn't anybody to really fix it for you. And so some of the data is kind of hard to adjudicate just because, hey, it might be we just pay attention to it more now. But I think we all have a feeling that, hey, kids are just outside less. And they're going to hurt themselves if they all of a sudden are going into these things where you're outside all the time, under load, doing a whole lot, and you're not used to it. I was never inside. We didn't have that kind of stuff growing up. So
I saw the first thing in my area. It's the first time that I've seen it probably in like 10 years. I saw a kid with a cast on his arm the other day. And I looked at him and I was like, bro, what'd you do? And he was like, I was playing and I grabbed this thing and I fell and I put my hand down and I guess it broke my arm. That's the first time I've seen a kid in a cast and I don't know how long. And I was actually I wasn't glad because that kid, broke his arm. I don't want to make it sound like I was like, yeah, good for you.
He was a little glad. He was like, nah,
I was a little
that's
glad.
what you get.
There's kids in casts all the time, growing up. Everybody was hurting themselves doing something. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I think the big difference is now that they're coming out of combat control school and essentially going to the teams. There's that training deficiency that now that the teams and the squadrons have to deal with. But there's a side of that I don't think is necessarily bad, right? There's some big stuff that's going to be hard to train to, like, some of your vehicle stuff, vehicle convoy, the water jumps, the big logistical items. But I also think it gives, 5 and 7 levels an opportunity to train their dudes. And so that's, especially as, we're not heavily involved in war right now. It's an opportunity for guys to say, hey, learn how to be better NCOs and train their guys. Because they were already training guys going from 5 to 7 level. Now you just got to, hey, dumb it down a little bit and go from 3 to 5. But it's a mentality shift that, I don't think we're there yet, but we can absolutely get there. Because I think giving guys an opportunity to be true NCOs and develop their dudes tactically and as an airman is pretty important for the force.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit. We talk about all the HP assets in the pipeline now and how some of these people use it as a crutch. Can you kind of explain the lack of HP assets in the pipeline when you went through and how people just be like, if you're hurt, go away. And also for our listeners, using it as a crutch and kind of being that turd, how do you avoid that? What do you do with those assets? And how do you end up being that person that, Lieutenant Colonel Tanner looks at and being like, come on, man, you're doing this all the wrong ways.
In our pipeline, the first time we saw an HP asset was at CCS, and they had one strength coach. And, we were doing a workout or two with him a week. The rest of it was, out on the grassy knoll or doing some kind of ruck, cadre-led fun event. And then we saw a little bit of it at, I think, SCTS. They had the strength coaches, but, not a lot of the physical therapists. It was really if you were hard broke, you could go get fixed. But, if it was kind of little stuff, is hey, kind of figure it out, avoid that thing and move on. And so there's part of that that's good. Hey, you got to grit through some stuff. Part of it is hey, you developed lingering issues, like my lower back from Kiesler when we did calisthenics for 4 months. And then CJ Roman was like, hey, we're doing heavy deadlifts today. And so I don't regret going towards the HP side because of that, because I think we honestly injured a lot of guys that shouldn't have gotten injured. But now, you're given the assets. You have physical therapists, athletic trainers, strength coaches, nutritionists, and you can absolutely use that as a crutch. So one of the things that I had heard from some of the students is hey, I wish I didn't come to combat control school right after free fall. Because I didn't really get the chance to work out. And, my jaw dropped on the floor of well, what were you doing at free fall? Yeah, exactly.
I was jacking school every day at that school. What are you talking about, baby? That was great.
It's a gentleman's course because it's dangerous, right? You're learning how to jump out of an airplane. And he's like, well, I didn't have the strength coach there. And I was like, hey, Bubba,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
that's the wrong answer. Like, you know, they're there to help you get better. They're not there to motivate you and check on your workout. Like if you're doing a workout. And so
look how mad everybody is. If you guys aren't watching the video version of this podcast, go over to YouTube right now and you can see the absolute disgust from 75% of the guests.
And, you know, I told them straight up, I was like, I wish you hadn't told me that. But it's the truth. And I don't think that's not the majority by any means, but they're the guys out there. And I think, you know, guys that we went through, like if we were given those assets, there was going to be a couple of guys that would use that. You know, and I know down at not Keesler, but in San Antonio when I was there, like guys absolutely weaponized the med assets, right? It's like, oh, I got to go see the doc because of this. And it's like, all right, dude, just quit. You know, if you're going to do that every day, like this isn't the place for you. And I think, you know, especially young dudes, they got to figure that out because some of them, they just don't know what they're doing. Right. And they're developing minds and they haven't figured out that this is not for them. You know, people always put a stigma on quitting, which it's like, yes, there is. But like, if you think about it rationally, like, hey, this is not for me. I think it's a pretty mature decision to be like, hey, this isn't for me and I'm not going to waste everybody's time and I'm going to go move on. And so I never really liked that stigma. It's like, hey, once you get out in the community, like, yeah, don't fucking quit, dude. But, you know, make a mature decision before that. And I thought that was okay. Because you don't want to drag dudes through it, man. It's worse for everybody if you really don't want to be there.
Well, you're taking up those assets too. Like the guy that's seen, you know, listen, HPO is not there to motivate you. Like the human performance folks, they're not there to motivate you and make you go to the gym and check on your workouts. Like that has to be, the onus has to be on you. But it's also not a free massage every day you feel like getting out of training. So you got to find that middle ground of like using them to actually, you know, as an adjunct, like they're supposed to be, to take you to that next level, help you break through plateaus, help you move a little bit better. People have to find that middle ground. And when somebody's going to these folks 4 times a week, 3 times a week, they're actually taking up like that's 3 sessions that can't be devoted to somebody that really cares. They're really there and they have a chance to make it. So that's a tough thing to try to explain to folks.
Well, and what you're doing with your cadre too, right? Like we've all had that cone that everybody knows is going to quit. And it just takes them additional, like an extra week to quit, even though after everybody already knows that this guy isn't going to make it. And it's just like, dude, we can't move forward because you keep holding us back until you either say the words or do something so atrocious that I can, like, people may not be tracking, but it's not that easy to just get rid of a student in the pipeline. Like that's what 99% of them are quitters and injuries. Like the performance failures or the amount of paperwork it takes to kick someone out is robust. So like sometimes you have to just, you know, get the team to get them to help them
a little nudge
the door so we can move forward. Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of a soft quitting is kind of the way we termed it, of like, hey, I'm just not going to do really anything and I'm going to make you like quit for me. So essentially, like, I'm going to put the onus on you, the cadre and the leadership to kick me out. But I'm not going to put in the effort to say I quit. Again, because I think it has to be, it's a more mature decision than people think it is. If you actually decide like, hey, I said I wanted to do this, but now I actually know and have decided this is not for me. Like that's a hard thing for people to do. But I think it's righteous. Like Aaron said, man, you're taking assets away from other people that, you know, hopefully are honestly using it.
Well, it's so logical too. You know, when you watch what we put these folks through, it's like it's the only choice that actually makes sense. The guys that make it on the team are illogical people that felt something different. But I mean, I there's also, but on that, in that vein, the whole once a quitter, always a quitter. I've seen multiple guys come back after quitting the pipeline because they see behind the curtain, they're logical people and they quit. And they're like, okay, when I come back, I'm going to understand. Right. We have one on the podcast. He's everybody's favorite host that gets death threats. It doesn't make any sense.
It's great. I love it.
It's like, I've seen behind the curtain. I wasn't ready. I'm not going to belabor this point, and I'm going to come back in 2 years. And then when those guys crush it, it's like, I love hearing those stories and talking to those guys all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's a mature man's game, right? Like this is, you have to be a man to get through this and be successful. And sometimes you're just not there, man. Like if I enlisted at 18 and tried to do that, no freaking way, man. Or if I like got right out of college and they threw me in there, like I was not mature enough. Like it took me an additional 5 years after college to look at myself and be like, yeah, I'm going to put myself, through the training and actually do this thing. So the fact that it happens, like, I'm not surprised. And Trent, I think you're spot on of like, hey, once a quitter, always a quitter. Not necessarily, and we have multiple examples like currently. And a couple of my best friends coming up through the pipeline and into the community, that's like they quit other communities and came over here because they made a mature decision of like, this isn't for me. My heart's not in it, so I'm going to go do something else. And I think
guys have gone on to win silver stars after quitting. Guys have quit in the pipeline, came back, and then went and won a silver star. Like, guys, it's not my favorite story about that is I was at one of the pararescue enlisted selections that we were doing, like before that we would let them go into the pipeline, like for cross trainees. And we had an older PJ that didn't know my story. And he's like, listen, if you ever quit, once a quitter, always a quitter, you're never going to do it again. And it's going to be terrible. So like there's a 0% chance that you make it. And we were on a board in front of the actual like students. And I was like, no, I actually quit. I came back. Everything worked out fine. Anyway, it's not the end, man. And, to your point, like, I think that's always been my line. Like, I was not emotionally or, spiritually or mentally ready or mature enough to complete the pipeline. Like, I just wasn't. I was a 21-year-old dude, but I was a child. Like, I hadn't seen enough of the world and done enough things. But I came back later with that experience underneath me. Worked out fine. Here I am.
And I think there's a lot of value in having to do that on your own. I mean, that was super valuable to me, like the work it took to cross train. Because it's like I was training on my own before and after work. And I found a lot of value in that because you had to be motivated. It was like, man, I was working out at 5 o'clock in the morning and then 5 o'clock at night. And it was not freaking fun, man. Like, I hated my life for a while. But yep. That did me well in the pipeline. And I've seen a lot of cross trainees that, you kind of have that, you have to have the motivation to do it. It's not just kind of handed to you coming straight out of, high school or whatever, or going straight into the pipeline. But there's a lot of guys that do really well that way too. So
yeah,
I think either way
kind of
can
to
be
your
valuable.
Point, like people quit things all the time. Like, you quit acquisitions and went this
Thank
direction.
God.
So like, you recognize that wasn't for you.
Acquisitions is now the hardest job in the Air Force because Rylan quit.
Right.
And he became a STO. So obviously, mathing it, acquisitions way more difficult.
Yes.
Acquisitions has 100% attrition rate for STOs.
All right. So combat control school, without a doubt, looks different from when I went through post-Vietnam. It's got to look different from when you went through. So what are we looking at now in terms of what the construct and the structuring of combat control school is?
So, I mean, I can't talk to 1975 when you went through, Peaches, but I mean, when I went through it, it wasn't, the construct isn't that much different, right? It's 20 days, 20 more training days. So essentially 4 weeks longer. But we're just added time to make the essentially like the tactics blocks, some of the shooting, AIEs, assault zones, kind of extend all those things. But the general course is fairly the same. I mean, you're going right in, and we have our HP week where you're learning all your HP stuff. Then we're getting into comms, and it's pretty much the same comms that we went through, just updated radios, a little bit updated content. We're going to land nav, and it's same 2 weeks, man. You're doing the STAR course out at McCall, and so I would say the flow is fairly similar to what it was, 13 years ago when I went through. I think the content is just updated. The assault zones block is a lot better. I mean, we're not using the freaking total station or whatever that thing was called anymore. Yeah. Like, we got some guys that, some really experienced assault zone guys that have updated TTPs. So we're teaching relevant stuff as much as we can, still doing AMP1 setups, And so we're always trying to morph and kind of update the scenarios. Like tactics, we're doing more lane-based training, a lot more SUT than I think probably what you saw or what I saw. But all goodness, just getting guys, familiar with moving in formations, and they're actually doing squad level attacks as opposed to we were just bounding away from every bit of contact when we went through. So if we ever got attacked, that's all I ever knew how to do is just run away from it.
That's right, Australian Peel.
Exactly. I think our shooting blocks are a little bit better as well. But that's the general theme is like, hey, everything's a little bit longer. And I think we're just teaching more updated TTPs.
Okay. Well, just for the listeners out there, AIEs and SUT is small unit tactics. AIEs is alternate insertion extraction method. Forget the M, but
because it's impossible to Google those acronyms.
It is.
So Peach is going to break it down for you. I know it's tough out there, especially with AI. So
It's
you're welcome.
easier to get in the comment section and be like, oh, there's a bunch of people listening that don't know these acronyms. AIEs are getting on and off a helicopter or any other method of employment. And it's a bunch of different ways to do it, whether you're hoisting, whether you're climbing back in via a ladder, whether you're doing an air land and hopping off the helicopter, then they're picking you back up. Those are alternate insertion and extraction methods, folks.
Yeah. And so what is okay, so you said that you've extended combat control school by 4 weeks. How long is it now?
So currently it's 83 training days. So you're looking at about 4 months, which previous it was 60 training days. So yeah, we added about 4 weeks. But really, trying to teach all of in the tactics block, you're doing all of your tactics, all of your AIEs, a lot of your shooting, and cramming that into 4 weeks just wasn't doing it justice.
No, I get it. I get it. Like even what you have now as 83 training days, that is still there's probably no white space in that schedule, in that training events every day.
No, I mean it's full on every day. The break we get is when we have all the academics. That's pretty much the break everybody gets because that just doesn't involve a lot of the instructors. But still, there's a handful of guys in the classroom to answer questions, to work through a bunch of stuff. But I mean, it's mostly outside. More than half the course is definitely done outside. You get a sprinkling of academics, some baseline knowledge, and it's like, hey, you're doing practical application almost immediately. Because it turns out outside of my job, you guys are supposed to go outside and work.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love a good officer joke from an officer. It's great.
Yeah.
Coming from Mr. Germany over here. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Obviously, Peaches didn't do anything.
Peaches just catching strays for one deployment. Like I was in Afghanistan calling danger close at 16 years of age, and we're giving him crap about the one time we get a good deal.
One Germany rotation. Yeah, it's over.
As you should.
He built 1,000 bridges. Am I right?
So, combat control school, unless I'm wrong, and this kind of goes for the PJ schoolhouse as well, but like this is the first time that they actually get issued weapons and they're learning how to shoot and everything, right?
Yeah, in this current construct, I think. Let me just check my math here. Yeah, for combat controllers, there's nothing else before that, and so I mean they're going from not really doing anything, and I don't know if BMT has it right now. I know they weren't shooting for a while. I think they're trying to bring it back. I think that's what
Trent would know that.
Yeah, they go out there and they qualify with their rifle, but that's about it.
So I guess they shoot there, but then they don't touch it for a long time. And then we move past the AFQC into some advanced shooting, both pistol and rifle, pretty quickly. And so guys that aren't familiar with those weapon systems, like it's a quick learning curve. But I think there's a general push and I think General Davidson was doing this, is like, hey, they want guys carrying around rifles at BMT, and the fake ones with functionality, so you can manipulate the safety, all those kind of things. And I think it's a great idea. Those kids should have weapons in their hands the whole time.
Yep.
But I mean, even at ATC, which is up at CCS now, like we make them carry around at least nugs all the time. Like they're never without their rifle when they're walking around. Even PTs, blues, doesn't matter. So it's just getting that familiar, that hand placement, treating it like it's loaded all the time. And I think those are great reps.
So I want to talk a little bit about the instructor staff at CCS. These guys are absolutely crushing it every single day. We take every second that we can to really pull the curtain back, right? Because everybody that we talk to, they always set up the us versus them. It's me versus the cadre. It's me versus the course. But really, you have the most combat experienced instructional staff in the history of the Air Force that's working at CCS right now. And that's not blowing smoke up anybody's skirt. That's just a fact. These guys all fought the long war for 20 years. And now they're there pouring that experience into the younger folks. What can people that are getting ready for CCS or getting ready to look, get into the pipeline, what can they look forward to getting from this instructional cadre down at CCS?
So yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that misnomer of like this us versus them thing, because it's absolutely the opposite, right? All of our instructors are just ready and wanting to feed these students all the knowledge, right? But they're not going to hold their hands or not keep them accountable. So in my in-brief with all the students, I tell them, it's like, hey, we all want you all to pass, right? We want, if 25 guys show up, I want to put 25 berets on at the end. But like, if I had to, I'd wash everybody back for failing events. So it's really up to them. And I was like, if you guys bring the motivation, you're putting out every day, you're actually doing the work. Even if you fail here and there, like, we will work with you. If your motivation is there, like, we will move heaven and earth to get you the tactical reps, the knowledge, whatever it is. But you have to bring that to us, right? Like, you have to bring that motivation. It pains guys like Jeb Thaxton. Like, he wants guys to be so motivated, and it's extremely frustrated, when you don't see that out of guys, knowing that, you were there once, you put out the work and got things done, and to see guys not put out the work is extremely frustrating. But we want everybody to be successful. Guys will stay there until 8:00 at night if guys are trying to absorb knowledge and ask the good questions and do the right things. We are there for the students, and they really because they're grooming teammates, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what some people don't, I guess, get, is that, like, hey, all those cadre know that they're going to be on team with those dudes that they're grooming, and they want to have good teammates, right? They don't want tactically non-proficient teammates or unmotivated teammates. And so they will absolutely move heaven and earth for those kids, students, whatever they are.
We're allowed to call them kids. We went through this whole thing where you're not allowed to call them kids. Your brain's not fully formed. You're a child. I'm going to call you that.
So I will say I've had guys, and I'm almost 41 now. I've had guys come through that combat control school that are older than I am. As senior airmen. It's wild.
So you're saying that old people can go through the pipeline, sir?
And be successful. Yes, I can.
This is the first time I've ever heard that.
This is the first time we've ever said that on the podcast. It's crazy.
So it's all based on your motivation, man. Like, if you bring it, like, we will be there and do anything for you. But if you're not, we don't want to pull it out of you.
Yeah.
And it's because you're not going to. The instructors can't possibly, we're not there to instill things in you. It's not like a software upgrade where we're like, oh, here, I'm going to give this piece of my brain to you to understand how important this is right now. And that was something I used to say to the students, down at the pararescue schoolhouse. I would look at them and I go, guys, there is no magic thing that happens when you put your beret on. Like, the product that you guys are going to be long before, when you pass that final evaluation and you're done with the course, you have to understand, I am giving you as a team member to friends that are going to take you to go deploy. Like, this is it. There is no magic thing that happens to you inside your brain when you put that beret on, you blouse those boots, and you say your respective creed and motto. There's no magic that happens in between that time and when you get to the team. Like, this is it. Like, you guys have to give me more than we're giving you, and the instructors down there are giving everything of themselves to help them be better. What are some good things that people can do getting ready to go into the pipeline, getting ready to go into CCS, wherever they're going to interact with cadre? What are your expectations of those students? What do you want to see them do to have the instructors go, wait, this guy gets it?
I mean, first one is motivation. Man, show up motivated every day. Even if, some days you're going to be mentally down, you're going to be physically down. Like, you're going to suck some days. Like, it happens to everybody, right? Show up motivated and push through whatever it is. And if we can tell, like, if you're just having a bad day, but you're still kind of maintaining motivation, like, we can tell. The cadre can see everything. It's amazing. You think as a student, you're like, oh, I'll just hide in the corner. It's like, dude, we can see everything.
I got a calibrated eye, baby. When you start hiding, you actually focus me in on you. I can see it, and I'm like, oh no.
So it's so easy. It's funny to watch. But, like, if you bring motivation, day in and day out, like, number one. And then just positive mental attitude. I've always kind of made jokes about that because I'm kind of a grumpy dude sometimes. But it's like, hey, if you're there and you're willing to learn and do the things and actually listen to the instructors, turns out they know what they're doing. They have the techniques to do all those things. And if you just pay attention and come with a good attitude, like you're going to be successful, right? And then you still have to put out, like, motivation and putting out hopefully are the same thing, but not always. But if you kind of do those three things, man, you're going to be successful, right? And it might take you a couple tries at a various school, and like, dude, failure is going to happen to the best of us. But you know, if you bring those three things, you'll be fine. But it's very easy to see when you don't. And that's what, if I could tell any of the incoming students, is like, we know when you're not motivated. We know when you're having a shitty attitude. Like, and you know, if you're being disrespectful, like just get out of here. Like, nobody wants that. You're a young guy learning. Come with respect, a positive mental attitude, and just go crush it. But I do tell the students, like on my in-brief, is like, hey man, you're going to have bad days. It's going to happen. Don't have too many, but it's going to happen. You know, work through it. For me, like I said before, get to the next meal and then move on. You also can't have a bad day doing the same thing. Like, you can't fail the same thing over and over and be successful. But if you don't have a bad day, you probably weren't trying hard enough. Like my dad told me as a lieutenant, he's like, as a lieutenant, if you're not fucking up, you're not trying hard enough. You know, I've tried to maintain that. And, you know, if guys are making errors of commission versus omission, meaning that, hey, they're trying to do things and screwing it up, I'll take that all day. But if they're sitting back, not wanting to make mistakes, like, hey man, just go do something else.
There are a lot of lieutenants that took that advice. You know what I mean? Just kidding. Also, I want to see grumpy, you know, Rylan one day. I don't think I've ever seen you grumpy. You seem to always have a pretty good attitude.
Yeah, ask Doug Furnell how grumpy I can be.
Right.
Great dude, my SEL.
I was like, you got all kinds of students walking around there, and I can't, just knowing you as well as I do, I bet that they're like, oh my God, that's the commander. Just ignore him. Don't make eye contact.
Oh my God.
It's been great seeing some of the students after, you know, they're at the 2-1, or I ran into a bunch of them at the 2-6, and some of them just kind of looked over at me like, oh shit. And you know, Brian Clausey ran into one of the stows down at the 2-3, and he was, you know, the student was like, oh yeah, Colonel Tanner's a hard ass, and Clausey's like, no, he's not. So he's
what are you talking about?
Yeah, he said him right. Clausey knows me.
Well, I have to ask. So when you went through the pipeline, the SAUT pipeline was still fairly new, and you kind of saw from like a lieutenant perspective, right, which is different than just like a regular student perspective, how the pipeline was working back then. And now we have the SR pipeline. So I got to ask, what are the big changes that you've seen from when you went through from the SAUT guys versus the SR guys and all their training now?
Well, I mean, the majority of SAUT specific training was down at Keesler, right? So you guys, what was that, 7 months long, something insane?
Yeah.
That had to be the worst time ever. But then, I mean, there's not a prerequisite course for SR anymore. All that stuff is done at combat control school. So you're learning all the SR specifics, at least at the 3 level within combat control school. You know, your SUAS, your hide sights, your general recon, your long range target interdiction. That's all housed within combat control school. And we place the majority of that either in tactics or during the controller's assault zone. We're going to SR fundamentals. But yeah, there's no prerequisite course that was concurrent with ATC like it was before in the pipeline. So
God, why won't anybody just tell us what SR does in the pipeline? I just hate it. I hate it so much. Like, you just said a bunch of words. Like, we can't.
But he's like, it's different. Yeah.
All right, guys. We're just going to have to do another episode.
Yeah. I do want to ask, I was the ATC course down at Keesler has a pretty decent attrition rate as far as I'm tracking for the active duty folks. And I don't think that the ATC course out where you're at has much attrition, if any attrition at all. And what would you attribute that to?
So yeah, academically, our guys do really well. And, you know, we have to get the 334th, right, is the ATC school down at Keesler. And they have to, every year they come look at our course because we have to stay in lockstep with their tower portion. And so we're running the same content. But we have a contract for our instructors, because we didn't get the manning once the course shifted up to Pope. We didn't get the manning that came with it, so it became a contract. Well, it's all old ATC guys from the Army, the Navy, wherever, and these guys are super motivated. They love what they're doing, and so like they put in so much work into these students, and like we just don't see the failures. I think the availability for I'm going to screw this up. SIA, essentially extra work. Don't ask me what it stands for. But our instructors do a ton of SIA for the students, making sure that like even if they're failing, they're going to get them there. And there's only been, I think, one student since I've been here the last 3 years that we're just like, nah, man, sorry, we're not going to drag you through this. He couldn't figure it out. And then one really cool thing that we have figured out is we do a live fly portion at the end of ATC. So they're actually out at McCall talking to a real airplane. And the 334 came up and they were like, dude, we wish we could replicate that because, I mean, huge difference, right? Talking to a human being as opposed to a computer. And so I think it's translating really, really well into combat control school where they're going to get HLZ controls. They're actually going to get to talk to live aircraft. They're controlling drops, all kinds of stuff at CCS. So
what are the students? Tell me just about the students' faces the first time that they get off that mic and they were like, that was a real aircraft. I told a real college graduate what to do with his multi-million-dollar platform, and he listened to me.
I mean, they think it's great. Sometimes it doesn't go as well as they think it does. But it's pretty funny, because it's like they realize like it's not that difficult, right? It's just you're talking to another human being, and if you screw up, and you guys are going to figure it out together. So I think it's very motivating for them as well. Of like, because talking to that stupid sim is tough sometimes, right? And if you're not the right verbiage at the right time, where the pilot will just be like, "Hey, man, do you mean this?" And you're like, "Yep, sounds good, dude. Like, go do that."
I was gonna say that you have a pilot that can be like, "Are you sure about that last? Repeat last again, and maybe think about it.
Maybe be better.
Maybe don't try to crash my plane. Thanks."
I think the push to think really comes out once you're talking to a live human being, because you see a lot of like, "Hey, I've depressed that button and there's no words coming out of my mouth." So it's pretty interesting, but it's good experience as a kind of a stepping stone into CCS where things are a little bit more involved. Because they're going to have a lot more stuff going on at CCS when they're talking aircraft.
Yeah, and do you think it's just that motivation of our students knowing that there's more stuff coming that keeps that academic attrition low? Is the motivation of the cadre, or I mean, because it's funny because we talk about this stuff on a fairly regular basis, and people are like, "Oh, what are the ASVAB scores for like PJs?" We're like, it's really not that high, but we found that with a high level of motivation and determination, then all these folks can make it through these academics. And the same with the ATC course. Even back in the day, we didn't have a whole bunch of academic failures, and we're crushing those dudes for 2.5 hours in the morning and then, maybe destroying the gym that they had to clean up at night. And so they have like 30 minutes or no time to study. And we had almost no academic failures. So like, I'm, like, what do we attribute that to? Is it strictly just motivation and knowing that it's going to be real sooner rather than later?
I think it's a combination of all those things. I think 100% they're more motivated than the general ATC, the 1 Charlie 1 student. There is hey, I can see the next course now, right? Like they see the guys over there. Although we tell them not to focus on it, like, hey man, focus on what you're supposed to be doing here. But they can see it, obviously. And then it's, there's a little bit of that fear of like, hey, if you're not doing well, like we are going to motivate you. There's a little bit more pressure, which I think is good. Like, man, we're not there to crush them during ATC. Like we want them to be successful, but we will crush them if, it warrants it. Right.
Yep.
We don't trash the gym for them, but which I hated you guys for that, by the way.
Kinder, gentler Air Force. Boy, oh boy.
That was
we don't believe in tradition anymore, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think that was ever a tradition. That was just you guys being jerks.
They called it a tradition so you couldn't assault it. They put it on an ivory tower and made it seem as if it was an ingrained part of the community so they could just trash the gym.
Yeah, it got pretty bad.
Yeah. So combat control school is also one of the kind of, I think it is the first place that people start doing land nav as well. And which, believe it or not, is a big question that we get a lot, right? So kind of a two-part like question for you, I guess, would be is should people prepare to do land nav before they even join or during the pipeline, like take these orienteering courses, or just come in as a blank slate? And then like, what is the kind of failure rate and how difficult is land nav at combat control school?
So there's kind of multiple aspects to that. I mean, I don't know. I think orienteering and doing general stuff, if you have the opportunity, great. Like getting out, walking through the woods, like looking at a map, figuring out what's on the map, and just general map reading. Like those are good skills regardless. And so because that's the academic portion is like, hey, you have to learn how to read a map. Like, what are all these things on the map? And you would think that'd be, pretty easy, but like sometimes it's not. And so if you already have some experience with that, if you have some experience with like, hey, it's in the morning and the sun's over there, I know what direction that is. Like it's easier. So I think preparing for that is good. And then there's the physical aspect, man. Like, hey, you're out there, you're walking for multiple days under load for a long time. If you're not physically prepared, you're going to have a bad time. Because it's not a short course, right? Like we want you to go long distances, multiple points to make sure that you're actually land nabbing appropriately, right? I think we do a really good job at combat control school, taking the guy who's never done any of that, because it's very crawl, walk, run. It was like, hey, we have multiple days academically of, hey, here's how to read the map. Here's how to, shoot an azimuth, intersection, resection. We go and test to make sure that you can do those intermediate steps before we're out. And it's all, we go do that slick, making sure that you can do it without a ruck. And so we take the guy who's never done it, and you can absolutely be successful. It always comes down to, hey, did you do what the cadre told you to when you're planning your routes, right? And the failures are almost always like, oh, well, I didn't create a backstop. I didn't, check at 400 meters, there should have been, this intersection on my right. I didn't check for that. And those little things that they just decide to not do leads to failure. There's very, very few times that it's other than that, if they're true failures. So I don't think that you need to do anything prior to. You can be successful without it. But hey, man, like if you want to go orienteer and do some of that stuff, like that's great. I will say that, when I went through, we went out to Sear and we did some land nav at Sear. But that was so easy because it was big mountains and you could look at the map and be like, right. Oh, that's on my map. That mountain's there. And I didn't need a compass. You could just walk around the rivers and the hills and stuff. You're not doing that at McCall. Like you have to have a good plan. McCall is brutal.
Is this road on the map or is this a real road? Is this?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's ghost roads.
All I see is trees. All I see is huge pine trees. Where do I go in the pine trees?
And so you're pretty good at land nav after you're done with the course. In that 2 weeks, like you can be very successful. But we see a lot of guys, they don't make a good plan, or they're unprepared, and then it's going to eat you up by the end of land nav field week.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's point to point to point, and ghost roads and tank roads and fire breaks, and just if you don't have a solid pace count, you are going to screw, and know how to read the map, you are going to screw yourself. Like
if you can guess Jared's pace count, we will send you a free t-shirt.
Ooh. I'm going to go with 103.
103. I was going 200s, baby. Just like his heart rate during any workout, right up to 180, and it's 200 if he's trying hard. You know what I mean?
Under load on terrain, so many steps.
Oh man. So we've kind of talked about failures and that kind of stuff, and obviously there are standards that are involved with that, and like I know you guys are holding standards, and there's just a lot of talk about standards and diminishing standards and that kind of stuff, and so I'm not really asking a question. I would just like you to kind of address, like, hey, here's our stance on standards, and from the commander of Combat Control School, here's where we're at on standards. And I don't mean like list out the standards. I mean just like the overall mentality about standards.
I mean, the mentality of standards is like, hey, we're going to tell you what's required, and then we're going to hold you to it, right? There's no surprises. Like I'm very transparent of like, this is what's happening, and this is what the expectation is. Do it or don't. Like, we will help you out to get to the do, but if you don't get there, like, hey man, sorry. And like, we should never be, other than transparent with standards, right? But one thing we do need to acknowledge is that, hey, every once in a while, like somebody decides that we're going to do something a little bit different, right? And that's kind of the nature of the job. Like, we don't do the AFSOC anymore. We do the OFT. Like, hey, now that's the new standard. And so we have to a certain extent, be accepting of changing standards. What we don't want to do is like, hey, if we're doing the same thing, we don't want to bump that standard down to, something lower for arbitrary reasons. We want to make sure that we're thinking through any of those standard changes. And I think generally we do. But, we live in a rank-based system. And if, somebody decides to change those become orders, and that's where we go. But the students are going to know exactly what we're doing and what that standard is, and how to get there. They just have to accomplish that standard.
Yeah, I think there's just such a thing that's been bred into us now with this instant gratification culture. I always laugh when people will send us like random memes from the meme accounts that live at all of these schools, and they're like, oh, look, another change, they're lowering standards. I'm like, bro, things changed way more than this for all of us our entire career. We just didn't have this little death rectangle that we can scroll on and find out information in real time. So people confuse the two between, we're always changing the pipelines, we're always changing these courses. You guys have the most experienced instructor cadre in the world that'll come back from a deployment and go, hey, wait a second, I know we're teaching assault zones like this. This is the actual TTP the guys are going to use, and this is valuable, and we're going to put it in there. And people often mistake change or process improvement for changing the standard, and then they get all up in their filios, and I have to answer 40 dumb comments about it. So that's a little...
You have to realize, like, sometimes we change a standard and it was not a good change, and then we're like, oh shit, that was not what we intended. Right. And you have to live, you have to work through that, and then at some point they might change it back, but there's processes for all those things. Because, like, man, people make bad decisions unintentionally, right? Like, a bad decision isn't an intentional thing necessarily. But, like, physically, if we talk about physical standards, it's like, hey, just go crush the standard, and then nobody ever has to worry about it, right? Yeah. The only people we have to talk about standards with are the guys that are not doing well, right? And if you're in that arena, it's like, hey, man, you need to make some better life choices and get after it, right? But if you just go crush that physical standard, then we can all just shut up about it. Like, it doesn't matter if that we think it's too low or whatever. Just go fucking crush it, man.
No, I'm going to be upset until radios are heavy again. I think it's totally unsatisfactory that radios are getting smaller and lighter. When we went through, it was way harder. Radios were bigger and heavier. So obviously these kids are way worse than we were.
Just super weak. Yeah.
I'm going to get a hold of Harris, and the next one, like the 117 mic model, I want it to weigh 45 pounds. I want to go back. Yeah. We got to go back. So, sir, I always say that, one of my best assignments was out of AETC. AETC is everybody's four-letter word to use. It's almost like a slur when you go into AETC or when you have to work there. But I got a ton out of it. So did Trent. I know that you probably got a whole lot of lessons learned out of it too. What lessons are you going to take from AETC in the training environment onto your next gig, hopefully as the commander of a super awesome squadron?
Well, I'm super excited to take the 2-1 here in about a month.
Let's go.
My home station. I cut my teeth there on team. So super excited about that. And man, AETC, like, it's a super righteous mission, man. Like, they say, hey, it's the first command. It's like, yeah, cool. But it really is, man. Like, it's where we're teaching all of our airmen to learn the things to be successful in the career field. And I think we have unique pipelines in terms of, like, hey, we get to groom our guys a little bit different and hopefully mature them as part of that process. Like, it's, these pipelines are longer than anybody else's. And so I hope that we get to mature those guys. And, like, I always loved coaching baseball, being part of, like, developing human beings. And so this is a really cool part of that. And I think it makes you have some of the lessons learned. Like it gives you perspective of like, hey man, you weren't as good as you thought you were, and gives you some of that humility and taking some of that humility back. And I think, going to the 2-1 and now we're going to have to train 3 levels. And so I can bring some of that perspective of like, hey, this is what we were doing. And I think I have a good way forward. And then I just use my technical expertise in all my guys at the 2-1 to implement some good training plans. But I don't know if my communication has gotten better in AATC, but like I definitely have some lessons learned of like what I need to better communicate, up and out and sideways. So I think I'm going to take some of those lessons, which I know you guys are tracking, but it's always, hey, for me personally, I need to be more humble, and AATC has humbled me in a lot of different ways. And so I think I can really take that as the 2-1 commander and like, hey man, take every day with a little bit more humility, and understand that like all those dudes out there, CMS operators, whoever it is, like everybody's going through something. And so have a little bit more humility in the way that you interact with them, and maybe a little bit of sympathy, which is not my forte.
That's okay. We're here for it. You're in the safe space right now. So Lieutenant Colonel Rylan Tanner, man, you're the man, the myth, the legend, the commander of Combat Control School right now. For everybody that's listening, that's trying to get to your course, and not just get to your course, but graduate and actually go out and do the job, put that beret on and go take the fight to the enemies of America in this great country. What advice would you have for those folks? What would you tell them to get them motivated on their way? And then hopefully they won't see you in the next month, because we know that's not the way the pipeline works. But for folks that want to put that beret on and become part of this awesome community, what advice do you have for them?
A big thing is like, you got to choose to do this every day, right? It's not a one-time choice, man. And we kind of have the quippy saying, like, you earn your beret every day. And like, it's the truth, man. And even training up for it, you have to choose every morning you wake up, choose to do it and choose to do it well. And if you bring that motivation, like nothing we do is cosmic, man. Like we don't have a bunch of supermen out there who are just, insanely smart. There's a bunch of knuckle draggers like myself. I was too dumb to quit, but I was motivated. Right. So if you want to do it, you can do it. Right. We'll get you there. But you have to bring the motivation, but just choose to do it every day. Every day you wake up. Yep. This is what I'm doing. Even in failure, even, when you're super sore or sick or whatever, like do something to get better that day. And you'll get there if you really want to.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Sir, so last thing, just from Trent, Aaron, and I to you, to the cadre at Combat Control School and the cadre throughout the entire pipeline, like, thank you for what you guys do. Thank you for shaping and molding the next generation of people who are coming in here to really just serve their nation and, do bad things to bad people that certainly deserve it. So appreciate you joining us. Everybody out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And then we just appreciate you being here.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Appreciate it.
Oh, Aaron's muted and he doesn't even know it.
I was making sure that I didn't say something stupid while Colonel Tanner was putting out like this awesome shit. Listen, everybody, I'm going to put one pitch out there. I had a good mentor of mine that said, never get your boss on the phone without an ask. Sir, you had the mental fortitude and the testicular fortitude to come on this podcast and talk to these people that are trying to get in. I'm going to put the charge out to you. Let's get an instructor from CCS on. All those other instructors, all those other dudes that are in there that DM us and want to give us input on stuff that we're saying as opposed to coming on the podcast. If he can do it, you can do it. So I look forward to getting that request.
I'll work on that one for you.
That's my pitch.
All right.
All right. Later.
Late.
See ya.